Cool. So we will get going then. It is 7:04 now, not 6:04. So welcome to the annual open meeting. It's actually in our bylaws that we have to do this every year. It's a fun meeting, but it is it's an obligation that we do to have one open to the public. This is the format we do it in for at least as long as I've been here. I think it was actually in person earlier in the days of the coalition, but it's been virtual for at least 3 years. So just kind of the lay of the land, what we'll do is first, just ask that everybody mute their mics. And if you've got any questions at any point, feel free to put them in the chat. And then we will have a look at those and transition over to those at the end. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So if you've got a question, put it in the chat. We'll get to it. If you have questions later, feel free to email us. You can get all of our email addresses off the website. Any questions at all, we're going to answer everything you ask. So feel free to put those in the chat, even if you're not ready to ask it, and just kind of get in line. And we'll go from there. So again, this is the open meeting. Here on the first slide, you've got the list of all the different folks on the board. I am Curtis Rogers, president of the board. This is my second year as president. So it's my duty to host this meeting. So we will get going from there. The agenda, introductions, we just did that. I'm not going to go through and make everybody in the call introduce each other, because that's a miserable process that I think we've all agree is not fun anymore. We'll go through mission and strategy, our strategic focus, board and committee structure. We are going to not talk about membership update because this got changed again when I just downloaded a minute ago. So we'll do membership update last, and then we'll do committee reports, and then we will do donor and sponsor acknowledgement and important dates. The introductions. So we are going to just talk about some changes, as you've probably noticed in a lot of our social media posts and the website, and just walking around. We have a new executive director, Louis Allen, who's on the call, and he'll do a lot of the talking this evening as well. We're super excited to have him. It's a big deal for us. It's a transition in leadership and executive directors is a big deal. We think, I know it's going pretty well so far, and we're excited about the work that Louis is doing. And again, it shows the sign of a healthy organization when you can go from one person, especially the first executive director, to the second. And we'll give it a shout out to Billy as well, who's made that transition work really well. And he's staying in the climbing world, so that has helped out a bit. So that's been a big new and exciting thing since 2026 or since 2025. New board members as well. We've added in the past couple months, we've added Anne Marie Malley and Gertie Autocroft, who are on this call as well. And we also lost Jeremy, Jake, and Matt from the board. Those three folks either termed out or had to stop for because of just the sheer amount of time that this takes. All three of those guys put in a massive amount of effort, whether it was for Ashland or for our accounting process, or for policies and procedures and running Oktoberfest. And those three people did a ton, and we could probably add 9 or 10 people and still not manage to do the same workload. And I think it's important for people to know, and this isn't just me tooting my own horn here, but like the folks who are on the board all have day jobs, and they work a lot of hours in the evening, weekends, nights, and then the staff works basically around the clock. We try to tell them to work less, but when you live and work and recreate all in the same place, it's definitely a lot on them. So just a big thank you to everybody on the staff and board, and thanks to those three guys that have transitioned off. So we are a board of 10 at the moment. Other transitions, executive committee transitions. So we have a handful of executive committee executive positions. The first is the president, which is myself. This is my second year, as I mentioned. Tara DeCamp was voted in as vice president this year. This is her first year. Brian Ogawa is the returning treasurer, along with Cole Musial, who's doing learning that job. It's a big job. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and those two guys are tackling it together with the hopes of making future transitions kind of flawless, as more than one person knows how to do the books. And then Sam North is not new to the board, but new as the secretary for 2026. So this slide has pretty much been the same for the past 4 or 5 years. It's our mission and our strategy. So we are dedicated to securing and protecting open public access to rock climbing in the Red River Gorge area of Kentucky, and promoting the conservation of the environment on the lands where we climb. That does not change. It probably will never change. And it's been the same since the mid-90s. The strategies: securing high quality climbing opportunities, making them sustainable, the stuff that we've been doing for years. And then, being the example of stewardship and education on our properties. Terry Taylor threw together a timeline here on the right that kind of gives you some of the history of the organization since 2019. And I believe this is more or less the same as last year, other than it's added a couple other kind of big milestones for us. One was getting rock climbing into the Kentucky Recreational Use Statute, which we did in March of 2025. And we'll talk about that a little bit here later. And then, the addition of Ashland and all the fundraising that went around with that was another big one. And then most recently is the 11 new crags that we've opened to the public, which is 250 total routes. Louis will talk about the routes and access and acquisitions here shortly. That is, it's a shocking amount of new routes that have gone up. And, we'll caveat all these. You're going to see some numbers in this presentation talking about routes that have gone up. And those numbers are as accurate as we can get them, but we know there's more than that. We know that there's more, whether it's existing routes in the red or new routes. We know that there's routes that people don't submit to us. And we know that there's routes that have probably been out there for 30 years that we've never counted in the list, as much as we do try to get to all of those. The committees, this is how we organize our volunteers. I'm going to just run through these real quick. We have functional committees that talk about the various aspects of the organization. We have board meetings once a month. We have committee meetings once a month. But in order to make the board meetings efficient and not 17 hours long, we talk about a lot of stuff in committees first. So we have a fundraising committee, which talks about exactly that, just different ways to fundraise. They do also some event work, although most of that is now with Tara Taylor as the marketing director. Operations, that is the accounting, the financial stuff, things like passwords and data migration and moving from one platform to another. I think I made the joke last night that it is by far the most boring meeting that we have. And I think Brian would agree as the chair of that, but it's incredibly necessary to talk about things like tax returns and the stuff that gets talked about in that committee. The governance committee is one of the few that doesn't have volunteers on it. That is the executive committee, and then staff will join in as necessary. In that meeting, we talk about governance issues. We talk about policies like HR policies. We talk about the organization of the RRGCC. We talk about votes. We talk about staff raises, staff salary, things like that. The governance of the organization. Access and acquisitions, fairly straightforward. It's a pretty large committee where we talk about potential access issues in future acquisitions. The Ashland purchase was in that meeting a lot. We talked about that, from the first time it ever came up on our radar to closing it out. Now we do break out and have more meetings when it comes to things like Cliffview and K Fork, Ashland, which is now K Fork, and we'll have meetings on those as we think we need to, especially when you get really into the details. There were times there where we were probably meeting every other day to talk about those acquisitions as they got closed out. Education and outreach, they do exactly what it says there, educating climbers and then reaching out to the community. They do things like rock lates, where we invite folks to come out and try climbing outdoors for the first time. They do gym to crags. They'll do organize things like some of the hikes that we do, which also happens in conservation and stewardship. They're organizing an affinity bolting clinic, which is coming up. They do all kinds of things, reaching out to the public, both in Lee County, in Kentucky, and across the country, to just educate and climbers on all kinds of things, from leave no trace to how to park to, hey, do you even know about climbing, and introducing people to climbing. Conservation and stewardship, that is once again exactly what it sounds like. We talk about endangered species on the property. We talk about invasive species. We talk about trail needs, oil company interactions. All those things happen in that conservation and stewardship group, and more than that as well. Finally, and most importantly, is our staff. We've been truly blessed in the past, since we hired our first staff, that we've got a great group of people working for the coalition, but really working for climbers in the red. Louis has kind of hit the ground running and has been all over the place, meeting people. I told him when we did his orientation over there at the coffee shop his first day, eventually there's going to be a conversation that we're having where you were there for the beginning, not just the middle. And so, a conversation will start and it's like, what are they talking about? It's like, oh yeah, we talked about that 7 months ago. You've only been here for a couple months. So he's doing a great job learning the role and then getting out and meeting everybody. So if you ever see him out there, definitely say, hey. Tara Taylor's the marketing director, and Tara's been here for a little over a year now. And I think anybody who's following our stuff on social media, or if you see signs at places like even just just the small printed signs at Cliffview, or the merch, I think anybody who's looking around and noticing our stuff is seeing that there's been a big change in the past couple of years with Tara. Just getting the brand out there, doing unbelievable work with the social media aspect of it, but also working with other photographers and videographers and other folks to really just kind of make the RRGCC a known brand. All right, so strategic focus. I'm not going to run through all of these. Every year we talk about what we plan to do for the following year. This year we're doing it a little bit differently. We still have goals. We're going to have a much bigger strategic plan about midway through the year, where we sit down and we talk about, hey, we've got all this property now. It's kind of been we've always had property, but we've got a lot more, and we're gonna sit down and really do a proper strategic plan, and that'll probably happen, like I said, middle of the year. But every year the committees come up with, hey, their goals for that year, and these slides will definitely be put up on the website. So one thing that we want to highlight too, as I transition this over to Louis, is I think it was early this year, we started talking about everything that happened in 2025. And it's pretty amazing what this group of people has been able to accomplish in the past year. First and foremost of which is the Ashland deal, which is the largest land acquisition in climbing access history. Nobody at the Access Fund has been able to tell me that that's wrong, and nobody at the Access Fund has been able to tell me that it's not the biggest deal in specifically for climbing in the world. So sometimes I say the world, but I don't know if that's right or not, but I'm pretty sure it is. A big part of that was also winning $1.45 million in grant funding, and a lot of that goes to Billy and Jeremy and the rest of the team, who really put together a cool kind of a funding structure that I'd never seen before, and I don't think anybody else has ever seen before, where all these different actors came together to make it work. Like I mentioned earlier, we also amended the Kentucky Recreational Use Statute, which sounds really nerdy and lame, and it is kind of nerdy and lame, but we literally wrote a law in the books. Like we wrote the words and put it in there, and the new recreational use statute in Kentucky has protection for climbing because we got that in there, and we're seeing that play out, and been able to send that to a few folks even in the past couple months, that I think it's going to help us get some more access to future areas, and we can talk about that later if we like. And then the biggest thing is the 11 new crags. When we got access to Cliffview and Ashland, we didn't know how quickly we'd be able to get some of these crags open, but thanks to the land management team and a lot of volunteer time, 11 new crags got opened, 250 new routes, which is pretty amazing, and it's not stopping anytime soon. So with that, I will hand it over to Louis and let him talk about access.
Yeah, so access and acquisitions. I am now chairing this committee, but I'd like to just take a second to shout out Jeremy Rancic's work. He was obviously involved with the board and the access committee for a very long time, and is the co-chair today. And all of the successes that we're highlighting in this meeting from an access perspective would certainly not have been possible without Jeremy's hand and wisdom in that. It seems like it's become a tradition to share some of the ownership statistics for property management in the red in these meetings, and I think that's a good thing. We don't own all of the climbing in the red, but we do own a decent chunk of it, and I think it's really important that we keep up with that landscape and pay attention to our role in it. More data is always a good thing when we're making big decisions. A couple of interesting statistics. In 2022, I think the statistic that we had pulled was that the coalition owned 44% of all of the known or documented routes between the sources listed on this slide here. In 2025, following the Ashland purchase, we owned just over 50% of all of the documented routes that we were keeping track of. Today, 1 year later, that number's a little bit closer to 60%. Obviously, our land hasn't expanded since the Ashland purchase, but development has been on a real tear. We've got nearly 600 new routes opened between the Ashland property and the Cliffview Preserve, and that all comes down to the work of a really motivated developer community, and we really appreciate the way that the developers have been willing to interact with the developer MOUs and to communicate with us about what their needs and concerns are. And Gertie Aldcroft, one of our newest board members, has done a really good job of fielding those concerns and helping make sure that those are some really fabulous open lines of communication. You can click that over, Curtis. So going into 2026, one of the major guiding principles here for our committee is going to be to explore ways that we might enhance our presence in the Big Sinking region and explore ways that we might connect the properties, with the end goal being to increase our presence as a community forest adjacent to the Daniel Boone National Forest. That is there's a big strategic benefit there in terms of gaining conservation funding for all of the properties, instead of having to do it piecemeal for different properties, or deal with properties that do have connectivity to the Daniel Boone and others that don't. So we're exploring what some of those conversations with landowners may or may not look like in the Big Sinking region. Those vary from leasing options, things that we've had success with, and all the way to direct ownership or outright ownership. We're in negotiation in a couple of different ways. We'll see what plays out, but that's really something that we're interested in, is figuring out if we can expand funding through connectivity. We do have some exciting access wins to announce during RIAD, so make sure you're there, make sure you're tuning into what's going on there. But we're pretty excited to share some good news. And then some stuff coming up in 2016 is, we're gonna do some parking expansion on the existing properties. That's gonna facilitate some crag openings in Cave Fork and Cliffview. And we've also got some ongoing negotiations with our neighbors with the oil companies about some of the good climbing that they own. One thing I'll just say here is that with those goals, that doesn't mean that we're losing sight of some of the opportunities that we know are out there. Some of like the more obvious ones, conversations with landowners like the zoo and otherwise, people that we just want to be delicate with those conversations, and we want to make sure that those landowners trust us and know that we respect them and that we're listening to what their needs are. In Cliffview, we were able to open 5 new crags in Cliffview in 2025. In addition to that, not all in those crags, but across the entire property, the developers submitted to us a recorded almost 300 new routes. We are really working hard to make sure that new parking lots roll out in 2025. We've got 2 on our radar that we're excited about moving forward with, and we've been working closely with Ian and the team at Cliffview to make sure that those are going to be sustainable and those are going to access high quality cliffline. And we are going to leverage our spring and summer events, RIAD and JATD, to continue to make sure that those trails are getting opened and that we're able to highlight some of the exciting work and effort that the developer community has been putting in. Over in Ashland, in the Cave Fork Preserve, in the Ashland purchase, we did expand Miller Fork. We opened Monster Wall, Outer Space, and Hell's Kitchen. Those are all up on Mountain Project now. You can go in there and take a look at some of the routes that are open and available. Some of them have been around for a while. The original developers that got in and shared that information with us were really gracious and gave us some awesome insights into what's been going on there over the years. And it's great to be able to get in there and see that little bit of history come back to life. Some of the big showcase crags that we opened last year were the Venue, Zuns, and Hatchet Wall in Wilson Holler. And we're really excited to open a few new crags in Wilson Holler in the Lake District next door this year, following what's going to be a parking expansion near the Lake District, hopefully this spring if things go according to plan. Another 300 routes got opened in 2025 or were submitted in 2025 from the developer community. I'm sure there were more than that. A couple of other infrastructure updates around the Ashland property. We did put in a gate at the Miller Fork parking lot there to help minimize ATV intrusions, so we can reduce disturbances to the arrow darter, that protected species that we're working hard to take care of in there. Some really cool citizen science projects are going on in Cave Fork. Some outside entities and groups of volunteers from the Conservation and Stewardship Committee have been working on getting a baseline for water quality in Wilson Holler, down below the cabin developments up there. We've also had some fabulous folks from a couple of different organizations reach out and get excited about the possibility to identify bat habitat on our properties, and do some passive monitoring just to get a sense for like where those populations exist in different parts of the Red River Gorge region. And then we've been working with some folks from the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, to put together an archaeology policy to help us better understand how we might manage cultural resources when we come across them.
Sorry, I got to go back and share that real quick because I've got one monitor and I tried to click out of the screen while Louis was talking. So give me just a second. All right, so the next thing we're doing is the FGI. Can you all see my screen? Because now I can't see you all. Cool, thank you. So some of you all might not know that the FGI is actually an LLC of the coalition. So we wanted to give them a shot here to talk about the work that they've been doing, and I will hand it off to Colin to do that.
Thank you, Curtis. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Colin Howell. I am the director of the Red River Gorge Fixed Gear Initiative. For those that do not know, as Curtis just mentioned, in early 2024, the FGI became a wholly owned, independently operated subsidiary of the RRGCC. As director, I run the organization, but I am assisted by Louis Allen, who serves as manager, Justin Minyard, who serves as our corporate liaison, Eric Cloker, who serves as our gear manager, and volunteers Billy Simic and Jeremy Rancic. In 2025, we had our Valentine's Day fundraiser, which ironically enough, at the time, it set a record for donations for that fundraiser. As fate would be, shortly after that fundraiser, the Ashland purchase was completed and announced, which resulted in a huge flood of rush on development gear. So we ended up hosting a second fundraiser, for those who remember the Chaucer's Boss initiative that we started up. And with the help of that, we were able to earn even more capital to help provide the hardware that was necessary. As a result of those two activities, as well as continuous community support, we were able to use $32,800 to distribute hardware in 2025. And that was while still maintaining inventory in stock. So by the numbers, in 2025 alone, your donations help subsidize 1,900 glue-in bolts, which you're going to be seeing those in the field as the new properties get announced throughout the course of the next year or so. 400 5-piece stainless steel expansion bolts, 85 perma draws, and 300 mussy hooks. It's worth mentioning that all of this only exists with community support. So mad props to everyone in the community to showing your appreciation for the infrastructure that goes into the hardware that we enjoy on the walls. From a 2026 standpoint, we've already had groundbreaking success again with our Valentine's Day fundraiser. We earned over $15,000. That includes matching donations from Visvantage to Permadraw the venue, which is the first property from that section that's been announced, and other sources as well. Going further into 2026, please keep an eye out for the next event that we'll be participating in, which is Rebolt the Red. Currently, it's scheduled for August 29th, and we've got a few surprises in store for that. So, but yeah, thanks for the support and keep everything going.
Thanks, Colin. I appreciate it. There's a ton of work that's been going on there, and just with the new properties, there's, like you said, there's a lot more to do. You know, I like to think that we keep the rebolters and the guidebook folks on their toes with everything we add in. So yeah, we definitely couldn't do it without you all. So next is the conservation and stewardship. You know, Curtis Gale Dyer has been around for a while doing this, and he's one of the main reasons, him and Audrey, one of the main reasons that we have this amazing property. One thing that I always think about is, you know, when a comment that we get a lot from especially folks who climb out west is how our infrastructure is great. And I know for those of us who climb out here mainly, we think, oh, maybe this trail is eroding, or maybe this belay base isn't as good as it could be. But compared to a lot of the climbing out there, the infrastructure we have is fantastic, and a lot of that's because of them, as well as executive director and staff who have worked hard on this. So some of the highlights, obviously we increased the acreage, so there's a lot more work to do. Recorded over 1,500 hours of trail work, cut the trails to those 11 new crags, 18 trail days. As Louis mentioned earlier, the continued efforts to protect the Eastern Hemlock and the Kentucky Arrow Darter, the archaeological policy, investigating some of those sites. And then last year was our first time we've ever had paid land management. So we have a trail crew last year, and probably sometime this year we'll have a full-time paid land manager. So I will hand it off to Curtis.
Okay. Some of the main highlights from last year was we have almost completed a major undertaking at Brono Wall, where it has deteriorated over the years, but we've been able to build multiple layers of terracing and stairs. And we have just one more small project left there that we'll be finishing up at JTD this year to get that taken care of. Drive-by, with the help of the Access Fund conservation team, we were able to do a lot of work to stabilize the area underneath whipstocking and really improve that area and the water drainage. We've done a lot of trail work in terms of the new crags, in terms of getting the trails in. We've had to do some belay base work there. I know at Fedwall specifically we had to do decking there, but we were able to do stonework at some other areas. We've been very excited by the climbing stewardship program, which has been here both in the fall season, helping to educate people. It's really a good program to especially help people understand where they're climbing and which property they're on, because there is some unknowns in terms of people come down to the middle of the parking lot and not realize that they're on the coalition property. So it's a great opportunity for us to be able to educate people on that. We also, this last year, was working intently on trying to put together a policy for invasive species, which we can then use to guide us in the future in terms of creating new projects for us to be able to remove them, and how we would remove them, and have been able to present that to the board, and now are moving forward this year into the action phase with that. We've been continuing to do treatments on the woolly adjacent. This year we actually did treatment over by Shire and North 40. Prior treatment was over by Monastery, so we're excited about that. One of the new things that happened this year that we were very excited about was we actually had various groups came out and did conservation hikes. So we had a wildflower hike, I think, in the beginning part of spring of 2025. We also had 2 hikes with geologists to talk about the surrounding area. They were all very well received and, in a manner of speaking, sold out. One of the other things we've been doing lately too is talking with the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife about the bat habitats. Moving forward also with another organization there that's also been talking about how we can treat the woolly adjacent. I'm sorry, that word is for something driving me nuts today. So the plans for this year is to continue with the climbing stewards. They have been a huge success and have been helping us a lot. Some of the major projects we're planning is that right now the Access Fund has a conservation team coming here for a month, starting in March 25th, to work at Crossroads to give it some much needed love. It has needed that for a while. We're also hoping that at JTD that they will then be taking care of curbside. We need some help underneath wildfire. We're also going to be looking at basically various other crags in Cliffview and Cave Fork and working on starting to get them opened up. A lot depends on the parking, and then from parking lots we then move outwards to the crags, and then depending on how much belay-based work they require, we then determine if they are going to be the ones open this year or not. We are also moving forward now that we've got the invasive species policy to now looking at the endangered species on our property. As we've mentioned a couple times here already, we do have the arrow darter. It's found in the Hell Creek up by Record Shop and area, and we're trying to do the best we can to make sure we preserve and protect its habitat, which means one of the things we are looking at doing this year is there are a huge amount of hemlocks in that region. So we're going to be looking at trying to do a beetle release this year in terms of trying to control the woolies. We're also looking forward to doing more conservation outings. I know you have tentatively planned some species hikes for this summer.
Cool. Anything else you got there, Curtis?
No, I think I hope I covered it all.
I think you did. And I'll just add to that too. The reason that we're releasing the beetles to treat the algae there, or we're talking about doing that, is because pesticides could potentially get into the creek. So we've typically done that with pesticides, but that area being so close to the creek and the fish there, that's why I'm going with a biological control.
And I'll add one more thing to the biological control. The beetles we are specifically looking at are native originally to the Pacific Northwest, and they will be gathered actually from Maryland. So they have been shown to some degree not to overtake the environment, but specifically just to focus mostly on the woolly.
Yeah, and some other properties in the area have used them as well. So it's a pretty interesting topic that, again, in questions we'll be happy to talk about some more.
Yeah.
Next committee is the education and outreach. So some highlights there. Again, another huge year for this committee. 3 outdoor rock climbing trips to serve local youth. A pretty cool thing that they've done in the past 2 years really is getting kids from Lee County and the surrounding areas out climbing for the first time. I've been lucky enough to tag along on one of those trips, and it's a lot of fun, especially showing kids from Lee County that they're more or less their backyard is, in my opinion, and probably a lot of people on this call, that their backyard is one of the coolest places on earth, and so that's been a lot of fun. There's also been the informational hikes, as we mentioned before. The Climbers That Care, for the first time this year they did a summer drive for school supplies, and then also the Christmas drive as well, and that's been a big thing that the folks in the community at that community center, Beattyville Housing and Urban Development, have been super appreciative of. Hosted 3 Jim to Crags, the local community events like the chili dinner and the speed friending. Those are things you're probably going to see more of. And then there was also the 6 free Rocktoberfest meetups that happened for various groups. So with that, I will hand it over to Tara DeCamp. Cool. Thank you, Tara. Next, we got fundraising and events. Our three big events, Rocktoberfest, Riot, and JATD, were all bigger or as big as they've ever been. JATD had a massive amount of people this past year, and a ton got done. And that's, to be honest, that's how we get these crags. We talk about close to 600 routes being put up, getting them open. A lot of that depends on folks showing up to events like JATD, so we can get as much work done as possible. Riot had 45 teams, hoping to see that grow even more. That's coming up next month, and that was the third time we've done it. And then Rocktoberfest, in my opinion, I know I'm biased, but it was is the best one we've ever done, and really just kind of raise the bar, and hopefully we continue to do that in both the experience, the number of pros, and just kind of giving everybody the best bang for their buck, because we know buying a ticket is it's not cheap, but we like to think that it goes to a good cause, and hopefully we continue to improve on that experience for those of you who show up. So I will hand that off, and I believe Louis is talking about this.
Yep. So I obviously deal very closely with the event side of things. Our board member Angel, I won't be able to pronounce her last name. She's got a great handle on the fundraising committee. Wasn't able to be here this evening, but does a great job helping us find creative ways to bring funding into the organization, and also supports the events. As far as events go, the last thing I did before I took this role was I got to go to Rocktoberfest as a participant one last time. And I've been going to Rocktoberfest since probably 2012. And it was as fun, if not better this time than it's ever been. Love the community, love seeing people around from the tri-state area and beyond, different parts of the country, different parts of the world. It's such a special event, and I'm really excited to see where we go with it this year. This year is going to be the 30th anniversary of Rocktoberfest. Last year we got to celebrate the 25th birthday of the organization. Is that right? No, it's the other way around. 25th.
The other way around.
Other way around. That's right. That wouldn't be right. 30th anniversary of the organization this year. 25th anniversary of Rocktoberfest last year. With that, we had a ton of success with the Wednesday evening kickoff with Ryan Devlin and the Struggle Climbing podcast. He's going to come back this year. Ultimately, we brought in over $118,000 in revenue, which is $10,000 more than we did the year before. We had a fabulous set of athletes from fabulous set of sponsors. Tara already touched on the awesome meetups that we did during that event. Awesome set of guides and clinicians involved with that. And we sold over 2,000 tickets and hopefully saw as many participants. Johnny and Alex Trail Day. Last year, the big wins from that event were the Brono rock staircase, the staircase down at the Fed, and then the rock work at drive-by, things that people see every day, things that we hope are going to last a long time into the future, and definitely wouldn't get done with the awesome group of volunteers that come out for those projects. The organization was able to put on another successful locals day to work on the infrastructure over at the Fed, which is obviously one of the crags that we're really excited to have opened in 2025. Awesome group of sponsors and supporters there, and hosts from Lago Linda's, obviously Miguel's, Rock House, doing awesome, give us so much support and so much love. West 6 and ALA keep everybody cooled down and hydrated. But it really wouldn't come together without the volunteers that come out for that. And we're really excited about making that happen again this year. We're going to have another week of Access Fund conservation team support leading up to the event in 2026 to help lay the groundwork and get things organized so we can be extremely productive during that day this summer. Ryad, I think this year's the fourth or fifth iteration of the Red in a Day competition. We've got, last year we had over 45 teams compete. Awesome group of sponsors, great to celebrate the Red River reunion with Miguel's, and they're so gracious to host us over there. We love having Maker's Mark and Country Boy come in and be a part of that. And obviously got to celebrate Miguel's 40th anniversary with the film capping off that night. This year we're expanding the categories. We're expanding the sponsor list. We're going to be celebrating Miguel's opening up their new climbing shop and doing the Friday night kickoff over there. Early bird registration is open. So that goes through April 1st. I've got a big box of goodies blurred out behind me from all of our sponsors. Awesome in-kind donations for prizes and raffles. So if you haven't signed up yet, make sure you do that. And just remember, we've got some access wins to share this year as well.
Cool, Louis. Thank you. Next we'll hand it over to Brian to talk about finances. And just, the one thing I'll say about this is, we've, through a lot of hard work, brought in more money than the organization has ever brought in last year. And super proud of the whole team for doing that. But so Brian will go through the numbers. Have at it.
Yeah, I think, to echo off what Curtis said, it kind of shows how interconnected everything we do is. We've brought in more money through grants. I think a large highlight is looking at that $1.4 million of Ashland grants, and we would not have been able to make such a large purchase without it. But what people don't realize is what's behind that money is doing a economic impact study with Dr. Maples, 5-6 years ago, identifying the Kentucky arrow darter habitat. And without those two things, that's, $1 million less we would have had to buy Ashland. So I think having conservation and stewardship mixed with our membership program and our community outreach really tells the story of how powerful this community is. So like Curtis said, crazy year. I was tricked. I was told being a treasurer was easy, and then all of a sudden we were getting federal grants and compliance. But, if you look, I won't go over the numbers with you, but if you take the Ashland grant out, you'll see that over 50% of our income comes from either, donor advised fund, individual contributions, individual giving, like our Ashland campaigns, and then our membership program. I think that's a really, really powerful thing that we could not do without you. On top of that, not only contributing financially through our membership program and our individual campaigns, but showing up for Rocktoberfest. That's our biggest fundraiser. That's a huge help for our operational income. It's fun. And I think what is not reflected in our income is how much money we're putting back into the local community when folks are coming down for the weekend, especially Rocktoberfest. They're spending money at Miguel's, Rock House. So not only does it reflect really well on our balance sheet, but it has a huge economic impact in the surrounding community. Curtis, you want to go on to expenses? So I think a little bit more about how the sausage is made from an expense side. As you guys have seen, these are our committee categories and where we're spending the most money. Obviously, with Ashland and Cliffview, a ton of that was spent in conservation stewardship. It was hiring new land managers, hiring trail crews. It was buying 1 million screws and 1 million pieces of lumber to get these stairs and these bridges and, just get these crags open. After that, the largest one is obviously our general operations, which are all of our, boring stuff like insurance, salaries, sales tax, subscriptions. And other than that, just, filtering through where we're spending money. The access and acquisitions number is low just because we'd spent all of our due diligence money and we bought it with debt. So it's just not reflected on our profit and loss. But, I think it tells a story where we're highly focused on conservation, stewardship, access, and we're hoping to, put our money where our mouth is with with education outreach, a lot more small local community events, revamping our marketing. And so I expect to see those numbers go up in spend, which isn't a bad thing. We're a financially healthy organization. I think now more than ever, it's important to put our money where our mouth is and our mission and, make sure we're doing the right thing.
Thanks, Brian. I'll add, actually, I'll go back to that side. A couple things to that too. Just one, like Brian said, we can't do it without membership. If you haven't signed up to be a member, or know people who haven't signed up to be a member, like, sign up to be a member. Tara's going to talk about that here in just a second. That's pretty important for us, to have in that monthly revenue coming in, or monthly donations coming in, so we can plan. Two, it's really hard for our organization to budget something like access and acquisitions, because we have a budget, but at the same time, if a large property like Ashland comes up, we don't have $2 million just sitting there waiting. So as an organization, we try to be, or we are, as responsible as we can be, trying to keep a pretty good chunk of money in savings. That way we, especially now as we have 2 and potentially 3 full-time staff in the coming year, we have to keep a large chunk of money to be able to purchase a property if it comes up, but also not jeopardize our staff's salary and well-being. So it's a fine line we walk, and luckily, like Brian said, he got tricked into the job, and he's doing a great job. And we've had several folks leading up to him who did a great job and really put together some not only great ways to keep track of the funds, but several of us are new here, me and Louis included, where we were left with a healthy amount in the bank account, which is awesome. And then the last thing I'll say before I hand it over to Tara is you're going to see some more surveys coming out, probably about economic impact surveys. We did one for Oktoberfest that's going to get published pretty soon, but you're probably going to get links and see stuff on Instagram about, hey, fill out this survey. Please do it, because having that information and being able to show that you as climbers, we started off in this meeting joking about what our favorite restaurant is, but like in the red, but us doing things like that and going to restaurants and buying gas and staying in hotels impacts the area, and having that information and having your responses to that helps us to win grants and kind of garner the attention of decision makers and politics and funding. So yeah, thanks, Brian. And now I will hand it over to Tara Taylor to talk about the membership program.
Awesome. You guys set me up so well. Already kind of pitching the membership program and why it's important. As you saw on the last slide about kind of our biggest sources of revenue, like really roughly half of it comes from membership and half of it comes from our events. Super rough, but that just highlights like we're closing, like we're wrapping up on the slide deck here. And if you think about all of the wins in 2025 that we just communicated and how big of a year that we have, membership and your donations is what makes it happen. Like there's no organization without your support. And the best way you can do that is to support us through membership. 2025 was obviously an unprecedented year for support and like what we got done. But a side effect was actually that our membership program, some of our memberships expired because we were giving in other ways. And, from a marketing perspective, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like we're still receiving donations, but just in other ways. But it's a really good thing to keep in mind that your membership might have expired last year because we were giving through the Ashland campaign, or maybe attending Oktoberfest for the first time or something like that. So if you want to be sure that your membership is still active, please always email me. My email is tara@rrgcc.org. You can also go to our membership page on our website and log in, and you can see if you're an active donor there as well. We do have reminder emails, but there was a period in 2025 when people weren't getting those reminder emails. So if you want to just double check that you are an active supporter, there's a couple different ways to go about that. We do have some exciting changes to the membership program, so I have a couple props I'll show you. So we are now sending out these like paper envelopes. My blur thing's on, so you probably might not be able to see it super well, but we have an updated member ID card that's going to get you 3 punch passes into Mirror Valley if you come in at tier 3. If you come in at tier 2, you'll get 2 punch passes into Mirror Valley. You get 10% off the gear shop and restaurant, and you get these day passes from our awesome membership sponsors. So huge thank you to Mirror Valley and the Hoosier Heights gyms for supporting us in such a big way, as well as Miguel's Pizza and all those people that sit down there below. You get your sticker, you get discount codes, postcard, and then of course you get the member shirt or a hoodie. This is the shirt that I have, and we upgraded to comfort colors this year. So if you're a fan of heavyweight tees like me, they're going to be a bit nicer quality this year as well. So just some small but exciting changes to the membership program. But yeah, another big note that if you moved in 2025, the best way to ensure that you're still going to get your member perks is to email us and let us know. So you can reach out to me, let me know. We can change your address in the system. But huge thank you to all of our supporters. Dawson at Climb Cincy, he's been hooking me up with these day passes, and Muir Valley for working with us to get a really easy way to get your punch cards to get in. Miguel's Pizza as well, and all of those folks listed below are huge supporters of us. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who's been supporting us too, membership.
And just as treasurer, it is also my duty to remind you guys that our membership program and our giving is tax deductible. So if you're doing your taxes and you have not received an acknowledgement letter, feel free to reach out to me and Tara, and we can get you those.
Cool. Thank you all. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, in years past, we've had a third party fulfilling a lot of this stuff, and Tara's taken that on this year to where she's sending it out now. We're hoping that's going to improve the timeliness and when you get getting the correct things and when you get it, because probably the two emails that we get the most are, why don't you pave the load hill and where's my sweatshirt? So hopefully the where's my sweatshirt emails go away. But if you have questions, like Tara said, reach out to her, because the work that she's been doing, I think is going to make this a much smoother process. Yeah, so that's that kind of wraps us up. The 2025 was like it says there, was a whirlwind of support. Could not have been done without you all. So a couple things here on that note. What we used to do is we used to put up a slide that listed all the donors over a certain level and individual donors over a certain level. But two things happened this year, and it's a good thing. One, so many people gave that it would have been like 5 slides. And two, some of you all gave so much money that I wasn't sure if you wanted us to put how much money you gave, so I don't know if you wanted me to say, hey, this person gave over 25 grand. So instead of contacting all of you all and making sure that was okay to acknowledge, we kind of cut out that slide. And hopefully we never have to bring it back, because it continues. So it was a great reason to not have that slide. But we did update our corporate sponsors, who also go a long way in helping us out. And you can see all these. I'm certainly not going to read all of them, but many of them, and probably purchase things from many of them as well. So the corporate sponsors, the climbing brands, local businesses are huge to kind of keeping the mission alive. And so to them, and also to you all as individual donors, we just can't thank you enough. Last thing here, some important dates coming up. The Access Fund Conservation Team, there's going to be some volunteer dates if you want to get out and help do some trail work. Those dates are coming up in April. The Climber Stewards, they come in next weekend, so you'll start seeing them around town as well. Riad is April 10th and 11th. JTD will be on June 27th. Revolt the Red, as Colin said, is August 29th, and then Rocktoberfest will be that week of the 7th through the 11th. If you haven't already, sign up to receive newsletters, memberships, all that good stuff. So I'm going to exit out of this real quick so I can see my screen again. And we can get into the Q&A. I'm going to start at the top. Are there any state building codes that address how close to the cliff edge a building can be located? Who checks and enforces this? So I was sad to see the new cabin foundation above Grindstone. It's a bad look for Cave Fork. I'm not aware of any building code that says how close you can be to a cliff. We don't own the property on top of the cliffs. We have in Cave Fork, we're going to see more cabins put up there. If you've been out in that holler, you've seen them. They are an eyesore. It's not the best look, but there's not a ton we can do about it. What we have done is actually Louie and Tara were just out there this past weekend putting up signs saying, hey, please don't throw trash or construction debris over the cliff line, because that has happened as well. So trying to make sure that we keep that area as safe as possible, especially during the building process, is a big concern of ours. It's something we talk about a lot. It's something we just talked about in a meeting earlier this evening. So ensuring safety is definitely something that we want to do. As a side note, what I will say too, as homes go up, there are laws that we've researched about things like what you can do with gray water and sewage lines. If you ever see something that you're like, there's no way that's legal, I would highly encourage you just to email us. Don't do anything like confront a landowner, but just say, hey, I saw this on this property. And that goes for cabin companies or cabin building or oil companies, or even our own trees down on trails. Reach out to us and let us know if there's something that you see that we could potentially take care of, even if it might not be a problem legally or according to codes. Mike Wilkinson, no question. Thanks, Mike. Anybody else have questions? That was one question and hugs and kisses from Mike. I'll take it. But if anybody else wants to ask a question, I don't think we actually have people muted right now either. Oh, looks like we got another one. Top access is still okay when building site is there. So it'll depend, once the person purchases that lot. I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly. We've got access to the tops of the routes. I think in general the answer is yes. Is that correct, Louis?
I'm going to err on the side of caution and say that it is not. Once a property owner buys a cabin, we do not have a right to go up there to access those routes. If that's different than that,
it depends on what you mean by access to. Like if you're putting in a line, working on a line, you're probably more correct than I am. You shouldn't be accessing anything from the top if you're just going to climb.
Mm-hmm. And the only other thing that I'll add to that is we've talked with the folks that are selling the lots, and they are now handing out a closing page to purchasers out there that introduces the coalition, introduces our property, introduces some of the things that are really important to us in terms of conservation and aesthetics, and asks that people still please consider their neighbors when they're building up there. And they've got a direct line to me so we can talk about it, so they can figure out who's going to be their neighbor.
Yeah, thanks, Louis. And to further that point, the difference between accessing while you're bolting a line and accessing while you're climbing, like you really shouldn't ever come in. If you're coming in to climb, you should come into designated areas only, parking lots, trails, not bushwhacking away from the top. Yeah, Chris asked if there's any goals for how many crags may open this year. It's a good question. We don't have a number goal, but Curtis Geldire, do you want to talk about what you think may open this year, or however you want?
Yeah, so the main focus of me right now is trying to get, I have a more than a handful, probably around 10 or 20 different crags I'm looking at. It all depends on the parking and making sure because parking is the first and most important thing to be able to open up a crag, is to make sure there's a parking lot there, and then having an access trail off of that parking lot to the various crags. And so right now, at least 10 or so of them, if the parking lot goes in, then the trails to the crags should not be difficult. And then the crags I'm looking at, in theory at this point, do not have any major infrastructure such as belay bases that need to be done. So they should make things go pretty smoothly. One of the major areas I'm looking at, we've talked about this already, is the Lake District. So if anybody's been down to Cave Fork and gone out like to the venue, as you drive by, you've seen this giant lake. We own the property around there. So that's one of the areas we're focusing on to get open. And then Cliffview, I've got quite a few areas in there I'm looking at and have been able to find some creative ways to get off of the top down to the bottom to open up some other areas. So don't quote me, it's a rough number, but maybe another 10 to 20-ish, probably low end of 10. And then you'll be surprised if I do more.
I would expect it to be more than the 11 from last year for sure.
Yeah.
I think also to be a complete jerk and tease something without saying it, like it'll depend if a couple of other access deals come through. Because that could change. There are a couple out there that could change the priorities. One, because they're great potential acquisitions, and two, because the work would be a light load to get those open. But yeah, I would definitely expect it'll be more than last year.
Yeah.
Eleanor asked, we didn't cover it. I know a lot of folks are concerned about the load hill, and I know that it's not exactly in our domain to deal with that said. Is there any long-term vision for hill management? I'll hand it over to Louie and Tara here in a second, who've been talking to Steve Mays, Judge Executive, about that. Actually, I'll go ahead and do it now. I don't need to talk anymore.
Yeah, I'm happy to tackle that. That's a great question, Eleanor, and I would imagine that comes up in several of these meetings. Yeah, the load hill it's a county road. It's not ours to maintain. It's to some degree probably illegal for us to maintain it. We probably need to get a little bit more clear on that. Overall, the way that we improve the load hill is to ask for it from Lee County Judge Executive Steve Mays, right? And so the pattern has been that we need to go in there and prompt Steve and say, hey, this is looking bad again this year. You know who we are. We know what's going on. Would you mind going down there and fixing this for us? That system only works so well as local government officials feel like they want to help us out and understand that there's a lot of people that are using that road, both climbers and otherwise, right? Something that a couple of board members and myself have been working on, and I know that this has been going on for a long time before I got here, is just trying to improve public relations with Lee County, trying to make sure that those folks know that we're their neighbors, know that we're interested in being engaged and thoughtful community members, and showing up to things like fiscal court meetings, trying to ask questions about how we can get more involved with local youth, providing more Rock Ale 8 programs, trying to invite some of those small businesses into things like Rocktoberfest or Riad, and just make sure that we're like compassionate and involved community members down there. And that seems to be the way that we get in Steve's ear and have a way to go and say, hey, it's springtime, things are looking rough out there. Could you help us out? I don't know that we have much of a strategy beyond that because of some of the issues with, not issues, but just because of the nature of the beast there. But we're certainly always thinking about it.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good summation too. And a couple of things I'll add to that is, we have offered to help out financially and with labor. Tara Taylor actually went to Steve Mays, 2 days before Rocktoberfest, and asked him about it, and he went out and got it fixed, the next day. We do, and to Louie's point, our main strategy is just trying to be better citizens of the area. Again, you're probably going to see us at stuff like the Woolly Worm Festival this year, just to let people in the community know who we are and what we do. Did you lose me?
No, you're fine.
Okay, I think we lost Louie. I saw him pause. And then also one thing that I always try to be super aware of is that, it's a hard sell to talk to a county official and say, hey, you should work on this road that really only we use and the oil company uses. There's not a ton of homes or any homes down there. It doesn't really serve any business purpose. So, especially in a poor county in Eastern Kentucky, we do have to be aware of that. And I think one of the best things that we can do is just continue to be good citizens and, spend our money in Lee County and in those places, and have good interactions with people as we climb. And if, just show them that climbers are good folks, and hopefully they'll continue to take care of that road when we need it. But yeah, it's a constant thing that we deal with.
Yeah, no, I know we keep talking, we're belaboring the point, but we did directly offer to pay for the maintenance, and they were not interested in that.
Yeah. Which again, like Louis said, I'm sure there's legal reasons for that. Like,
yeah.
I don't know that I can go in my street in Lexington and say, hey, I want to put up a speed bump and pay for it, But yeah, it's a good relationship, I think. Wouldn't you say, Tara?
Yeah. I think it's a relationship that has a lot of respect for sure, and it's just a matter of kind of nailing down Steve and catching him when he's in his office and being friendly, like Louis was saying. But yeah,
for sure. Anybody else got questions? Will any of the crags be neoclassics? All of them under cabins will be neoclassics. That's the answer to that question. All right. Well, if nobody else has questions, let me make sure I got all of them. You can find our email addresses on the website. You can say hi to us at the crag, ask us questions. Just because we do one open meeting doesn't mean we don't take questions during the year. So if you ever want to know any more information about the coalition, what we do, how we operate, we'd love to talk about it. Maybe not tonight because we're on hour 2 or 3 of meetings, but any other time, we'll be happy to do it. So thank you all for coming out. We really appreciate it. And again, couldn't do it without you all. So have a good evening.